We're live.
We're live. The world is feeling really hard right now for a lot of people. And today we're going to talk about how the divine feminine and touching grass will help us to root and rise in the face of all this turbulence.
Well, welcome to the Black Madonna Codes, a weekly conversation for women leaders who know the sacred feminine cannot be contained, sanitized, or erased.
Through honest conversation about how the Magdalene principles are woven through history, race, spirituality, and current lived experience, we are widening the story and honoring the many cultures that have carried this wisdom.
We're inviting you to open your heart with us as we explore the Magdalene path with curiosity, humility, and reverence for the lineages we carry.
Ooh, I'm so excited for this conversation today.
It's so funny. We start off in our prep talking about one thing, and then it somehow always ends up being something else.
That's so real.
So by the time we start hitting stream, here we are. As I was right after I said the intro to what we're going to be talking about today, I thought about the many conversations I've had with my male friends who give me a little bit of whataboutism when I start talking about the divine feminine. It's like, well, what about the divine masculine?
Mm.
And so I was like, I just want a presence from the very beginning that we are not suggesting focusing on the divine feminine exclusive of the divine masculine.
Mm.
We are focusing on the divine feminine because the divine feminine has largely been erased. And energetically, it is something that is re-emerging into prominence at this time. And so, how can we align with that? How can we root into that? How can we acknowledge that even as a part of, not even a part, as a tool that can help us, right? That we've been sort of disconnected from this tool. How can we reconnect with this tool and this energy so that we can use it, we can use it to help us stay centered. And what we talked about before was touching grass, to touch grass. And touching grass is a way to reconnect with the earth, and that is a thing people do to regulate themselves, to regulate their nervous system, so that they can move through the turbulence that we're experiencing. And I dare say it is likely to get worse before it's going to get better. There will be more turbulence before things calm down. So just buckle up, Buttercup, because here we go.
Well, and Deidra had said, like, oh, yeah, haven't you heard that? Touch grass. You need to go touch grass. No, I had never heard anyone say that. I could infer what it meant, but that's not like something that people around me have said. I was like, I love that. And literally, like, for the two of us leading a pilgrimage for women business leaders today, like, it's a very pertinent little phrase, because it's doing that times 10. It's doing that to like this very extreme level, which matters so much. Yeah, we've been talking about pilgrimage, we've been talking about journey, like through the self to the self. Like, pilgrimage doesn't always need to look like devotion to something outside of you. We've been talking about these things, but this morning, as we were preparing for this conversation, the conversation turned a bit more towards like, why? In fact, we had this moment of like, why the fuck do women need this? Like, really? And really kind of getting gritty and getting really honest with ourselves, because we know it matters, but how do we bring that into the tangible? And really what we came to is like, the world is chaotic. The world is constantly changing and things are changing massively right now. And are we being the kind of leaders that are going to be able to withstand the change and actually rise through it and actually make the impact that we came to make? And that, to me, is what this touching grass piece is all about. Touching sacred sites, doing these things, because it has been erased. And so as a woman leader, I'm like, I am constantly in this deconstruction of all of this nonsense that I was raised with, that my ancestors perpetuated and inherited, and all of the things. So how am I showing up and being and leading differently? Geez, I mean, for me, it has been like having to like rip out the entire foundation and pour a new one. And so this is some of what, we wanted to bring to the conversation today. Pilgrimage. What is this? Why does it matter?
Right. Why do you need it? My favorite book about pilgrimage is The Alchemist, right? And one of these days on my bucket list, I'm going to do the road to Santiago in Spain, France, Spain, which is a sacred walk. But before I get there, I'm going to get to France and do the Magdalene pilgrimage and go to those sacred sites. And if you've never had the experience of going to a sacred site, or even going to a place that is charged with energy, like I know there are some sites in New Mexico that are heavily charged with energy. It's like trying to tell a blind person what the color orange looks like.
Yeah.
You have to go and have the experience for yourself. And it's like going to a well that you get what you individually need out of the well, right? Mm-hmm. It's like dipping your cup in a well and you get what you need, and someone else dips in the well and they get what they need. That's the experience of pilgrimage. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If you're in a sacred space or doing a sacred kind of pilgrimage. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's two kind of camps that I see as well, with people walking away from pilgrimage. And I don't want to rush. I feel like I'm rushing, but we're going to be talking about extraction in this conversation too. But maybe we need to wait. Maybe we need to let it come in a little
bit. Deep breath. Just take a deep breath and follow your
pilgrimage. What do you all think as you tap in and as you fill in? Have you been on a pilgrimage, an inner pilgrimage, a sacred land pilgrimage? Have you touched sacred land?
Even you're doing a new anthology, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, what is it? Wild
Belonging.
Wild Belonging. But the premise of the book is also a variation on the theme of pilgrimage, right? Yeah. It is leaving something that's very familiar to you because it doesn't work for you anymore, or you realize it's not really true, or it's not rooted in things that align with you and where you're going in your life. And that's difficult. And what is that journey? The journey of leaving, being in the liminal space in between there and where you think you want to go when you leave and where you end up. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so that's a whole thing. That in itself is a form of a pilgrimage. So I think everybody, if you're over 35, it is likely that you have experienced some kind of pilgrimage in your life at some point, even if you don't necessarily characterize what happened that way. Yeah. Right? If you've lived long enough, there's been some stuff there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Leaving home and going to college is a form of a pilgrimage. You kind of find yourself, you get to reinvent yourself in these new spaces. That's a form of an internal sort of pilgrimage. So.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're there. I think we have spoken enough to pilgrimage. I think before we go into extraction, I want to speak to touching sacred land, particularly related to the ancient feminine. So I loved what you said in the beginning, like if we're going to talk so much about divine feminine, why aren't we talking about divine masculine and like all this stuff? It's like, because it has been largely erased, and so much of what is there in ancient feminine is not actually gone, but it requires that we reawaken it in our DNA. It also requires that we create proximity to cultures that have carried practices, that have somehow managed to survive, and really understanding those things. Like, I think about Mount Shasta. So our company published a book called Call of the Mystical Mountain, Mount Shasta and the Emerging New Earth. And some people don't know that Mount Shasta is in California and that it's like a deeply spiritual site, and like ley lines cross there, and a lot of huge like transformation experiences happen there.
Tell our audience what a ley line is.
I'm probably not really qualified to exactly explain what it is. They're energetic lines, and where they cross on the planet creates like vortexes and portals, maybe where like the veil becomes thinner between what we can see and what we can't see. There's a lot of energy swirling there. There's a lot of opportunity for like depth of emotion, transformation. What else would you add?
Oh no, I think that covers it. Like, people go there for that reason.
Yeah.
They go to those places for. That's kind of what I was referencing earlier about places in New Mexico also.
Yeah.
Have these energetic hotspots, basically.
Yeah. In the curation of that book, we probably interviewed or spoke to around 100 or so individuals who had relationships to Mount Shasta and to this place as a sacred land. And all of them walked away changed. All of them walked away like, wow. Some people up and left their, Hollywood career, their, C-suite executive, whatever, and moved to Mount Shasta because of what they experienced there in themselves. But there was like kind of two camps. One camp was very rooted, very focused on reciprocity. This land has given to me, and how can I give back? How can I not be extractive? What's the history? Why? Let me understand how to be in right relationship to this mountain. And the other camp was I'm like picturing, I can't think of the name of the movie. There's that Disney movie, and like the guy has a huge brain, and he's like a mastermind evil guy or whatever.
Megamind?
That's it. Like, I've touched the land. I've recognized I have this power, and I am now nuts. I don't have any other way to say it. Like, not doing harm left and right with these spiritual tools, and like very much living up here, using the experience to bypass their trauma, that power of the land can give you that power. If you want to bypass your trauma, that is an option. You're probably not going to like the consequences, but like who you become as a result, but it really can create that. And so there's those who are using it to bypass, and then there are those who are using it to root in and become more like grounded in this human experience. And I think that really matters. And I see this with the Magdalene sites as well. I have now also been in conversation with lots and lots of people. And I think we come to these places seeking, and we have questions, and we have, wounds, and we have things we're carrying. But then how we arrive in these places really matters. So pilgrimage, I think, in and of itself is not the end all be all. And that's why I think community and what we're rooting into around the pilgrimage really matters as well.
Right. That's the setting the container for the pilgrimage, setting the container for going to the well and getting what you need from the well. I think you touched on, because you wanted to also talk about extraction, and you touched on that with what you were just saying, that some people come and they want to give back. They realize they've gotten something and they are then inspired to give back. And then there are other people who do the opposite. And as we were talking earlier about the changes and the tumult that we're in right now, and that we will continue to be in for the foreseeable future, we get to look for ways for where is this heading. And I think in the big arc of, in terms of where things are going from here, that we're moving from these extractive systems, right?
Bingo.
And in order to participate, you also have to be extractive if you want to be successful, right? That's almost what's required of you, or the system will spit you out. And so, but we're moving from that to a more heart-centered, a more equitable, because honestly, the planet just can't sustain
all the extraction.
It cannot sustain us continuing to live this way, the systems, et cetera, et cetera. It's funny, I was reading an article, actually, it was an article about a book that someone wrote, and he's talking about how changing your systems isn't enough. Like, not changing your systems, change this lip service that we give to change, to climate change. Well, we're going to watch our carbon footprint and we're going to, install solar panels. That's all surface activity, and it doesn't deal with the underlying cause, which is consumerism, right? You can't consume your way out of consumerism that is causing the extraction, right? And so it's like, that is the fundamental thing that has to change. And can you imagine a world? Can you imagine a different world? Can you imagine what the world would look like if we stopped? I feel like I'm about to give a history lesson. If we stopped, the thing is called enclosure. And what's happening now, Google is doing it right now, right? So when Google first started, Google was like the librarian, sort of. You go to Google because you're looking for information, and Google would index. People would put things on the internet, and Google would index those things so that, like your Dewey Decimal System, I'm old apparently, like going to the card catalog in the library, so you can find the subject, the thing that you're looking for, you can get the answer to your question.
I did that too. Okay.
That's what Google did. Google took it from brick and mortar and put it in cyberspace, in the online interwebs, right? Now, Google is using AI to summarize everybody's stuff. So people they read the AI summary, and they rarely clicking through to the actual site that the actual creator, with their actual words of what they wrote. And the thing about AI is that AI is always looking back. AI is always rehashing things that it's already hashed. And that eventually, so what they're doing is making it so, why would creators continue to put things on the internet Why would writers continue to put things on the internet if it's not going to be indexed, if people aren't going to actually read what they wrote, if only AI is going to read what they wrote and then summarize it for everybody else? That is a version of enclosure. And so when we go back in history, in time, before the Industrial Revolution, people just kind of lived off the land, right? They lived off the land, and then as the industrialization started happening, they wanted people to move off the land and to work for in the factories, right? Because they were building things and they were growing these businesses. And in the process of doing that, they did something called enclosure. So that's when we got into private property. Because for a long time, the land was just the land, and you had some sheep, and you took your sheep to go graze on the land, and then you would get wool from the sheep, and you might go sell that at the market or whatever, but the land was for everybody. And then capitalism and industrialization happened, and enclosure was the process that they used to cut people off from land and resources, because capitalism, to make the distinction between capitalism and commerce, capitalism is about controlling resources, controlling the capital used as the means of production. So it's going to Africa and getting cobalt. It's, you remember a few years ago, there was a standoff where these cattle ranchers were grazing on public government-owned land, and it was a problem. They took over this government building or something like that because they were protesting. Like that's enclosure. They wanted access to the land, but the government was saying, no, you can't get access. This is a real thing. And so can you imagine a future where we go back to before we had this enclosure?
Wow, right.
That's the moving from extraction, because capitalism and our current system, I don't even want to just, because it's not just capitalism, right? But the current system is what's breaking down, what we're watching break down. And it's scary. It's scary to watch this happen, because you also can't see what the next thing looks like.
Yeah.
So it's like the ground is sort of shifting under your feet, and it feels unstable and it feels turbulent. And so this is what we're talking about how do you maintain yourself?
Yeah.
What do you root into when the ground is moving?
Mm-hmm.
How do you find that space? And what we're talking about in terms of the retreat that we're doing to France, to these sacred sites, is the retreat is a form of touching grass.
Yeah.
And so that's where we were going with this, and why it's necessary, why it's important. Whether you do this retreat or you do something else, you're going to have to find a way to root yourself so you just don't get subsumed into the chaos and the shenanigans and nonsense that is ensuing.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved all of that. Thank you. I learned a lot. I love how you preface with, I feel like I'm about to give a history lesson. I was like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's rare that people really understand how we got here.
Yeah.
It wasn't always like this. And how did we get here?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And part of that enclosure was installing patriarchy. And that's how we got disconnected from the divine feminine, just to bring it full circle to what we started talking about at the beginning of the call.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't see a way forward, for spiritual leaders who are actively disconnecting from what's real and what's going on around us. It's not a sustainable model.
Not at all.
So this is where these Black Madonna codes, which Deidra and I have been deep in the work of massaging this out, what really are the codes, what really are the principles, and there's some element of what you said, you'll draw from the well and you'll get exactly what you need, and that is part of the Black Madonna codes, or these divine feminine principles. but there's also these rooted principles that if we don't also lean in to some areas that might be very uncomfortable right now, because you're not being forced to lean into them in some cases. For some people, you are being forced to lean into them, which is why it matters that we all do this work. That we've got to have some of these rooted principles as well. And this is the way forward. This is the way forward for our leadership, for our businesses. It's the way forward for our communities,
Right.
for our families, for people at large.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people in leadership, and leadership could mean a lot of things, right? If you are leading your family, you know, you're a mom or a
Yeah.
dad. It's not that you have to be a leader of many people. Like the number of people, the magnitude does not diminish your leadership. Everybody's a leader in some space in some way, even
Yeah.
if you're just leading yourself. But if you are a leader who is also spiritual, and you are not connecting your spirituality, your spiritual practice to your business and your work and your purpose in the world, like you're going to need that now more than ever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're not talking about religion. Like, religion may be a part of your spiritual toolbox, and that's fine. We're talking more about connecting to self, like these parts in you when you feel a full hell no in something. And what do you do with that? These parts in you where you feel like so turned on and alive, or so present, or so grateful, and paying attention, like, where is that leading me to? But it takes pausing, it takes time to root in and feel those things and bring them on board so that you can be in your fullness.
Yeah. And it's also, can you be with the chaos and not look away?
And not look away.
Not look away and not be thrown off your center. Can you do that? Because it's also not about bypassing. It's not about going into some bubble, into some spiritual bubble where I'm just above it all. That's not it either. That's not what we're called to do. But can you, it's like, can you witness it and still stay in your, the only word I have right now is spiritual center, right? But sometimes you'll see someone in pain, or you'll see tragedy. And can you see it through a lens that doesn't make you identify with the tragedy? You can, when I say identify, I don't mean don't be compassionate.
Yeah.
I mean,
For sure.
I want to be clear about that. It's not about not being compassionate, but it's like, my mother used to tell me, you can't help your friend get out of the well if you get down in the well with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the best example of that. Like, you got to be able to see someone in pain and then also see the possibility for them.
Yeah.
Because the problem and the solution are born at the same time. But the more you focus on the problem, the less you're able to see the solution. So it's like, can you see the situation and also maintain the presence to be looking for, or to be open to receiving the pathway out?
Yeah. Yeah.
That to me is spiritual discernment or spiritual maturity.
Yeah.
Can you bring that to these conversations? Can you bring that to the chaos? Can you bring that to the differences, right? To conversations with people who don't believe what you believe. To conversations with people who you might rather not talk to. Conversations. You know, can you bring that to those conversations? Can you see beyond the circumstance? Can you recognize that everybody and everything is on a continuum?
Right.
So there's that.
I love that. I want to round out this conversation, and as we bring it to a close, I'd really like to speak to like lineage and right relationship, because there are, one of the things I'll say, I spoke about Mount Shasta. We actually made a very concerted effort with that book to find a Native elder to write in the book, and we did not succeed. Everyone that we spoke to was pretty bitter about all these people coming into their land and just making it their own, and kind of stripping away at times, destroying land, destroying, sacred sites.
Leaving your garbage behind.
And we leave our garbage behind in energetic ways as well as physical ways.
Yep.
And so pilgrimage, like this conversation, why it matters so much to be in that right relationship, to be in, in proximity. Like, what is it that actually made this place sacred? How do we really be with that? And how do we be in that right relationship? What are we here to give back? And I think these are such important questions that, again, we're not extracting from all of these places. I had a woman on the show last week on the Magdalene interview series, and she said, it's so offensive. She carries Mayan lineage, and she's like, it's so offensive because when people talk about Mayans, they only ever talk about the ancient Mayans. And she's like, we're still here. Her dad is literally full-blood indigenous Mayan, and she's carrying this medicine, and she's like, and people keep talking about it like it's some ancient wisdom that, like they're dinosaurs and they've all gone extinct. Right. That's the thing with most of these sacred sites. If you dig enough, if you are willing and open, it's like the universe will show you how to be in right relationship with that lineage. And in many cases with the divine feminine, we don't have all of the pieces. We might have lost 1,000 years or a couple thousand years even. So we get to ask and be in that conversation. But I think what I want to where I want to round this out and bring it full circle is like, obviously this matters in how we're leading. Like, how I'm being with the land is also how I'm being with my clients, is how I'm being with my children, is how I'm being with everyone. But the piece that very few people are speaking to is how it means how I'm being in relationship with myself. Because when we bypass ourselves, we are extracting from ourselves as well. When we say, I know rest is important, and we don't actually prioritize it, or I know that, I operate best when I'm operating from a full cup, but then continually day by day show up with an empty cup, we're extracting from ourselves. So something that's been so surprising to me as I have been in this practice of listening more and turning on my ears and stepping away from extractive practices is that it has benefited me. I didn't expect that. I was like, oh, I'm at this point of leadership. I need to do leadership better. I want to lead vaster communities, whatever. I feel more whole when I go to bed at night, and when I wake up in the morning, my relationship with myself is different.
Give an example of that. Because that was good and it was conceptual, but give an example. What does that look like?
Let me feel in. What's an example I want to share? When I first started my business, I was always chasing the capitalistic form of excellence as a woman business owner. I mean, I was out to prove something. I was like, okay, we're doing this, we're doing it big. And that, like, layered and layered and layered. I created my own hierarchical ladder that invisible, that I had to climb, and I was fighting tooth and nail to climb this thing. There was one whole year I was working so hard. Every night I cried. And I had like multiple coaches that I had hired. And one coach was kind of like, holding the whipping stick behind me, like, come on, get going, do it harder. And then the other one was there to just hold me while I cried my eyes out. Every session with her. Just like, I can't do this. I had a realization that my drive was a decision, an unconscious decision that I made from scarcity, that it was rooted in junior high days of wishing I could be the most popular girl in the schoolyard. And parts of me, I started to see parts of me that had been willing to step on anyone or do anything it took, tooth and nail, to get where I wanted to be. And I was like, what? Like, I was like, what? Like, my whole mission was like, I'm helping people in relationships and all of this stuff. And nevertheless, this sneaky thing was also driving me. And so, and I realized in doing this, I have hurt people. I have driven sales in sleazy ways. I have, have I helped clients? Yeah, but how I got them there was not yummy, was not actually in alignment with my values at all. I had to fire coaches. I had to, whatever, all this stuff. It was like how I'm being in relationship with these people around me is gross, and I don't want to do it anymore. And so I stopped. And there was a whole year where I was like, I don't know if business works if you're just trying to be a good human. I mean, I was really like, I'm not sure, because people stopped listening because people were so used to me being on this pedestal and being this way as a coach and as a leader. It was like everyone just stopped listening. I was speaking to people who also had this hierarchy thing and this proving and this scarcity in their system. And they were like, what? Where'd you go? Like, you're like apologizing and like being all human and messy. And so for that whole
human and messy. Oh my God.
I know. I haven't forbid.
I'm a real human being. Holy smoke.
That whole year, I just refilled my own cup. And actually, that's where you and I met. And I hired Morgana. I was like, oh no, I'm going to hire you. I have no money. I have the least amount of money I've had in years, and help. That's where I met you. And then, yeah, what was crazy to me is it was all about, I don't like how I'm doing leadership with other people. I don't like how I'm doing this. I'm going to change how I'm doing this. And the result was I didn't like how I was leading myself. And so I worked and I healed and I changed my perspective. Morgana's space was the beginning of me beginning to deconstruct and recognize, like, oh, wait a minute. There's not actually anything wrong with me, and I don't have any ladder to climb. The ladder is a thing that has been created by all of these toxic systems, and I get to start deconstructing instead. And now that I have reemerged, right? This was years ago. I get to be in relationship with people in this really beautiful way. Business does work by being a decent human. But I feel so good. I was working so hard through that whole time on the belief I'm not enough. I'm not enough all the time. It was just like there all the time, no matter which tool, mindset, whatever I did, it was just louder and louder and louder. And it wasn't until I made this shift in myself and I started relating to everyone different. Like, we're all equal. We're all on the same playing field. And I want to be in love and connection with people above all else, that I created love and connection with myself.
I love that story.
Thanks.
Because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it too.
Yeah,
I love it too.
that's good stuff.
Yes. So anything else we need to say on this show today?
I think we've covered all the things we said we wanted to cover. So
Mhm.
I think I'm feeling complete.
Me too. Feeling complete. Thank you guys so much. I do want to extend an invitation if you've watched with us for this long. We are having the Black Madonna Codes gathering on May 31st from 9 to 10:30 Pacific time. This is the opportunity to come and be in space with us. Obviously, it's a Zoom gathering, so it's not going to be as epic as being in person with us in France, but an opportunity to come be in space where this kind of energy is held. And the invitation is to bring your Black Madonna images, your Mary Magdalene images, or even individuals who you feel are embodying these principles today that you want to speak to or you want to share with the group. And you can also just come and listen. So we hope you'll come in and join us. And if not, then we'll see you on the next episode of the Black Madonna Codes. Bye for now.
Bye.